Alright, so let's dive in. The first thing I'm going to do is open up Unity and create a new project. New top-down shooter. I'm going to bring in the characters package. That's just a standard package with Unity. And Surforge. Surforge is a texturing asset, which I really like. I'll post a link in the description if you guys want to check that out. It's $50, but it's definitely worth it. Now I'm going to hit create, and that's going to start importing those packages. While that's loading, I'm going to open up Blender and create a basic robotic character. I'll just use this for the head, so I'm going to drag that up. And I want to create like a humanoid robot. I don't want to rig it from scratch though, because that takes forever, and usually my rigs are kind of terrible. So I'm going to go to User Preferences, Add-ons, and type Rig, and then just make sure Rigify is checked. That's going to import that Rigify package. Then I can hit Shift-A in object mode, add an armature humanoid meta rig. So now we have a basic human skeleton, and we're just going to build the model around that. So I'm going to drag this down, and I'll just use a cube for the head. E to extrude, S to scale in. That's too big. S to scale in. E to extrude. E to extrude, S to scale. And I want to pull it back on the y-axis. E to extrude. And I just want to keep it dead simple. Now for the groin area, I'm just going to scale it on the x-axis. If you scale it on all axes, you end up with like kind of a weird groove there. So just scale it on the x, and then oh yeah, and before I continue, I'm going to hit Control R to create a ring loop. I'm going to left click and then right click. Now that's locked in place, and I'm going to hit Z to go into wireframe mode, select this entire half, and delete it. And it looks like I missed two vertices down here. Alright, so now we have half of a character. I mean, half of a portion of a character. I'm going to create a mirror modifier in this wrench tab. Now whatever we do on one side gets mirrored to the other, and I'm just going to drag this out. I'm going to hit G to drag and middle click to lock on the Z-axis. Z to go back into wireframe mode, take these two vertices and pull them out like that. And now I just want to make this skinnier on the y-axis. E to extrude, S to scale, E to extrude. E to extrude, S to scale. And we want enough geometry around the knee so that the knee can bend. If this was all one plane, it wouldn't bend when we try to deform the rig. So we need at least a few ring loops there. And whoops. Unity finally opened up, and then I'll put some more around the ankles so it gets better rotation there too. Whoops. Yeah. And I'm going to hit Alt and right click here, scale that out, and scale this out a little bit. E to extrude, whoops, S to, whoa, that's not what I want. E to extrude, S to scale in. I'm going to take these two vertices and drag them up. and then I want to rotate this around the y-axis. If you're not sure exactly how you want to rotate something, you can look at the colors on the ground, and I want this to rotate around this green color, and so that corresponds to the y-axis, so I can hit R, Y, and then rotate it like that. So we have precise angles. And when I extrude, it automatically comes directly out from the shape. But the gizmo doesn't quite align with how we're moving things. So we can set this to normal. And then now we're pulling straight out from the arm. And I'm just going to create sort of like a mitten thing here. Create a thumb. Control tab, go into face mode. And I'm going to go back into vertex mode and then just kind of play with the thickness of the arms. And we can also try different transform orientations like local, gimbal. So it doesn't seem like any of them really want to go along with the rotation that I'm trying to move it along. Anyway, I'll just manually move that around. Alright, I think that looks fine for the basic character. It's kind of comical. And I'm going to save this into desktop, top-down shooter, assets, meshes, and humanoid. And I'm just going to call this, I don't know what to call it, robot? Yeah, whatever. Alright, so we have this kind of comical looking robot. Let's open Unity back up. If I drop this robot into the scene, he's got a default rotation of -90 degrees, which drives me absolutely crazy. So to fix that, you can rotate on the x-axis by -90 degrees. Do the same thing with the skeleton, R, X, -90. Select both and hit Control A to apply rotation and scale. Then when you save that, once Unity re-imports it, well, that's not what I wanted. Usually that fixes it. Delete. There we go. So now he's standing up and there's no rotation on anything. Now I'm going to create a plane. We set it to 0, 0, 0. Drop the character on there. And you can see his forward direction is the forward z-axis. So everything's perfect. That's the way we want it. He's facing the same way that the camera is by default. Forward. Now I'm just going to move the camera around and within the scene view I'll just find an orientation that I like. Maybe like there. Select the camera, game object, align with view. And then I'll just zero out this weird value here. There. So now if we hit play, nothing happens. And that's fine. We're going to build something. And also I want to save this scene, new folder, scenes, default scene. 10 minutes in and we already have a basic character. Now, I want to be able to animate this. I'm not going to create the animations though. I'm going to use the animations that came with Unity. Characters, third person character, animation. By default we have crouch, idle, idle jump, jump and fall. You can see them all up here. Turn right, turn sharp, walk, walk turn, whatever. Those are all motion capture animations that we can use as long as we have a humanoid rig, which we got from Rigify. So now, to use that, we have to first make the bones actually control the character. So I'm going to select the bone rig. I'm going to click on this tab and click on X-ray so we can see it. Now I'm going to click on the character and then shift right click on the bone rig. And I'm going to hit Control, I think it's Control P, yeah. Set parent to armature deform with automatic weights. Now once we've done that, if we go into pose mode, we should be able to deform the model, yeah. And while we're in Blender, we can use Auto IK. And you can see the model is correctly deforming. Doesn't look good yet, but that's fine. It's a start. Now while we're here, I also want to click on the model itself in object mode. I'm going to tab into edit mode. Actually, from object mode, go ahead and apply the mirror modifier and apply the armature. And now select all the vertices in edit mode, U, Smart UV Project, and I'm going to choose an island margin of like 0.3 or 0.4. This is unusually high, but that's because I want to use it with Surforge. You'll see what I'm talking about later. And maybe not that much of an island margin. So let's do like 0.2. And now you can see what that did is it went along and it cut our model into pieces, and they're all separated by at least 0.2 units. I don't quite like the way that it did that though. So go back into default view, and I'm just going to mark some seams so that it knows where to cut. So I can Alt, right click. That's not working. I'm just going to select this whole ring. Kind of hard to see. Alright, so now I have his shoulder area selected. I'm going to hit Control E and mark seam. And I'll do the same thing around his lower waist area. Control E, mark seam. Alt right click here, mark seam, Alt right click, mark seam. And I think I'll do one more around the top and bottom of the legs. And again, I'm just using Alt right click to select ring loops. Alright, so now we have a bunch of... Did I do that right? Mark seam. I don't know why these are blue and these are red. Anyway, now that we have some seams, let's try to unwrap this again. And it did nothing. That's not right. That's because I don't have anything selected. So go ahead and hit A to select everything and Smart UV Project. And disappointingly, it seems like it sliced it up the same way as before. So let's try unwrap. That didn't work. Follow active quads. Usually I have more success with this. I would prefer it to like keep the leg pieces together. Let's see if we can do this like piece by piece. I'm gonna hit Z to go into wireframe mode. B for box select, and just take this whole bottom section. And U to unwrap. I've never tried it like this before, like piece by piece, but I think it'll work. Yeah, it's still splitting them up. That's so frustrating. I thought that marking the seams would help it keep like this whole cylinder together. Because I marked the whole top and the whole bottom, and now this is just a cylinder. And it's still splitting them up, which is frustrating. Anyway, just go back to the default Smart UV project, island weight of 0.2. Okay. Maybe 0.1. Sorry about that, guys. Usually I don't have so much trouble unwrapping my models. So now I'm going to save this and go back to Unity. Now this model, if we go back to our humanoid folder, if we click on the model and then view it in the inspector, we have some different options for the import settings. And so you could change things like default materials, calculating tangents. We don't need to do anything with the model, but if we click on rig, right now the animation type is generic. Let's change that to humanoid and apply and configure. Shoot. Did that work? Okay, so the model is now separated from the rig, which is not the way we want it. And that might be because of the way that I marked the seams. So I'm going to click on the model, shift click the bone rig, Control P, and set parent with automatic weights. Save that, go back to Unity. Hopefully that fixes it. Still not working. Let's try exporting this as a FBX. And I'm just going to create a new scene. Drop in the robot. This should be the FBX model. Yeah, you can see robot.fbx. Humanoid. Configure. Don't save. Apply. Alright, that's looking better. So now if we go into muscles and settings, you can see we can actually control the body just using the armatures. Done. And I'm just going to delete the robot.blend because we have the FBX. Now if we click on our robot, we have a few things. It brought in a camera by default. That's not actually a camera. You can see there's no camera component on this. This is just basically an empty game object. So let's delete that. We have a cube, and that's actually our model. So we can call this robot, whatever. We have a lamp with no light. So this is just another empty game object. And we have meta rig, and these are the actual like reference points on our model. So you can see like if I move the chest, it actually moves the chest. The reason there's robot here and meta rig here, these are just reference points. The actual mesh data and rendering is controlled by the skin to mesh renderer component on this piece. So now let's say I want to animate this. What I'm going to do, and I know this feels kind of hacky, but it works for this project. What we're going to do is go into the third-person character asset that we imported at the beginning. We're going to take the AI third-person character and just drop him in next to this guy. Now you can see this guy has a similar skin to mesh renderer component. He has a skeleton, pretty similar to what we have here. And then he also has like a nav mesh agent and all of these scripts on his base object. So now if we wanted to, we could go through and copy all of these onto our model. Or if we're being lazy, we can just drop these on here like this and delete the Ethan body. Now the character is here, our model's here, so we just have to line those up. So let's zero these out. And we have an animator component which is expecting a different avatar. So we need to make sure that we have our robot. When we configured the robot with the import settings, that created an avatar for us. So we're just going to drop that onto this avatar setting. Alright, now if we hit play, he's moving around. We just put our model onto the default AI character. So now, if you want to, you can go in and like figure out what all these components do. I've done that before, and I'm not going to try to explain that here. It's really complicated. There's a lot going on with this third-person character. The main thing we're going to use is this AI character control. And right now I'm just going to give it a target and hit play. It didn't do anything. Something's broken. Set destination can only be called on an active agent that has been placed on... Oh, okay. So I tried to make it navigate to that point, but I don't have a nav mesh. So I'm going to click on my plane, set that to static, open the nav mesh window, and bake the nav mesh. So now the blue is the walkable area, and I'm just going to hit play. And he runs off to the target. Excellent. I think his head is just a little bit too big. So let's click on the model, edit. I like the idea of having a comically large head, but it's a little bit too much. Okay, so I'm gonna export that again as the FBX, and I'm pretty sure everything else is gonna stay exactly the same, except the head's just gonna shrink. Well, we shouldn't have to create the avatar again, because that's like all we did was change geometry, and well, we didn't change the bone structure. Alright, so that compiled. I guess I shouldn't say compiled. That imported, and now we have a slightly smaller head. So what's next? We could make the character follow the object. And we probably want to give him a weapon. So let's create a weapon. New. Alright, so the center of this object is here. If I go into edit mode and move it around, we can move the geometry, but the center of the object still stays here at this point, as long as we're doing that in edit mode. So I'm going to make this like the handle of the weapon, or like the trigger area. And I want to scale this on the x-axis. I'm going to create a wing loop like that, and delete the left half. Mirror modifier. And I'm just creating a basic weapon. Oof, I do not like the way the mirror modifier messed that up. I think I'm going to delete that subdivision. And I don't really need a mirror modifier for this, so I'm just going to kill that. Alright. Control L to select the whole thing. S to scale on the x-axis, and then just try to recenter that. Alright, now if I add the subdivision, looks a little bit more like an assault rifle. And I can create ring loops and just kind of scale this. And I just hit Shift D to duplicate the geometry there. And I'm just creating a basic scope. Control L, S, Y. I'm going to hit Control J, I think. Control O. There's a way to separate the geometry. I thought it was Control J. I guess not. Let me look that up really quick. Blender separate geometry. Or selection. Oh, I think it's just P. Separate selection. There, so now we can take the scope and delete the subdivision. That'll give us more control over this piece. And you know what? Actually, I think I want that back. Subdivision. And I'm just going to create ring loops. Yeah, that looks good. Control L, S, X, scale it in so it's a little bit rounder. Alt, right click, grab that piece. Alt, right click. Control L, and I'm just going to pull the whole thing down. S, Y, pull it in. Alright, it's not exactly what I had in mind for this, but usually nothing ever is when I'm modeling something. Yeah, that'll work just fine. And I think I'm just going to add a little bit more detail on this side. W, subdivide, W, subdivide. And I'll just take two faces and extrude them in. No, I don't like that. Undo, undo, undo. That was a bad call. All right, now I'm going to apply the subdivision on both pieces, and select both and Control J to join them. Now I have one model again. Man, I really messed up the geometry on that side. I'm gonna... Ah, man, that's so irritating. Anyway, I guess I just have to run with it. I'm recording live. So, let's just create a new folder called Weapons. And we'll call this Rifle. And I think you guys are really going to like the part coming up. It's pretty exciting. So we're going to take that weapon. Oh, and I want to make sure that it imports without any weird rotation. Because as you can see, when I drop that in the scene, the rifle itself has a rotation of minus 90 degrees. But then again, it has a parent without rotation. I guess that'll be fine. I'm just going to scale that down, hit W to change the rotation tool, scale it in a little bit. Alright. That looks okay. And I'm just going to position that right up against his shoulder. Now I'm going to save the scene. I'm going to open up the animator component on the third person character. And I want to make sure that IK pass is enabled. And I'm trying to decide if we need a avatar, but I don't think we will. The next thing we want to do is create two empty game objects called trigger IK target and stock IK target. For the trigger, I'm going to position that right about here. And for the stock, I'm going to position that a little bit further out and closer to the left side of the weapon. Save. Now I want the character to hold the weapon, and so we're going to use something called inverse kinematics. Let's create a new script and put it on the character. And I'll put that in a new folder called scripts. And I'm just going to call this IK solver. Drop that on the character. Open that up. Now, when we're doing inverse kinematic stuff with Unity, we have to put it in a certain function. I can't remember the callback name. Unity IK callback. Okay, so it's called onAnimator IK. Now, whatever we put in this function, we can use to control the position of the player's hands. So we want a reference to the two IK targets that we just made. So public transform IK trigger target, public transform IK stock target, save. Now we can drag the character onto himself to get the animator component, and drag the trigger onto the trigger component, and repeat for the stock. And I'm just going to put these on the character. That way when the character moves around, the weapon moves with him. So that's not going to do anything yet. He just runs and has the weapon. And I don't like how he ran by default. Why does he start off running? Did I do that? Oh, it's that's right. I gave him the that move target. So let's just take that off. And I'm just going to rotate him so we can see him a little bit better. I'm going to hold Control to snap the rotation. Oh, and I think the camera moved with them. That's irritating. Yeah, I'll just take the camera off and then rotate. Alright, so now we can see him from the side view. And while we're at it, we might as well move the camera down. Get a better view of this. So by default, he's just kind of standing there idly. The weapon is a child of the character, so it'll move around with him. But he's not really holding it, so we're going to use IK for that. And now we have a reference to our two targets. So we can say anim.setWeight. We're going to set position weight of the hand to 1. So basically what this is saying is we have a position that we want. We're going to use that position, and it's going to have like complete control over where the hand is. If we set this to 0.5, it would blend half of the position into the animation and half of it, I mean like the hand's position, half of it would come from the animation, half of it would come from the position that we code. We want it to be completely controlled by the position. And now we can say animator.setIkPosition, avatar IK goal dot left hand and left foot, or sorry, left hand and right hand. The left hand is going to be on the stock, and the right hand is going to be on the trigger. Alright, so now let's hit play. And it doesn't work. Okay. I gave it a transform, it wants a position, so we have to say transform.position. That's an easy fix. Alright, so now you can see his hands are actually on the weapon. I don't like where his right hand ended up. Back into the scene view, and we're just going to take that right hand target and move it. It's starting to look better. Let's pull it back a little bit. Alright, and now the left hand, it's at kind of a weird rotation. So we're just gonna we're going to also set the rotation weight and the IK rotation. Set IK rotation weight. And so basically this is saying whatever animation or whatever rotation comes from the animation we don't care about, we're overriding that completely. That's what this one value is. And then we're actually going to set the rotation to our targets. Set IK rotation. Alright, so the left hand looks fine. I mean the right hand looks fine. And the left hand is at kind of a weird angle. So let's take this stock target, hit R to go into, or sorry, E to go into rotation, and then we can actually just manually position his hand. Like that. Awesome. And I think if we pull it back a little bit, we might get a better look. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Why don't we take the whole thing and pull it back? Whoops. There. Bend his arms a little more. And push it to his right a little bit. And we actually have the rifle object and the rifle graphics separated, which is actually kind of convenient because now we can scale this and move it around and it won't actually affect his hands because we're just moving the graphics piece around. That's really cool. Alright, so now if we leave play mode, all the settings we just made are going to disappear, which is kind of annoying. Alright, now that it's positioned where we want it, I'm just going to take this whole object and hit Control-C. Leave play mode, delete the object, and hit Control-V. Alright, so now we have the object with the corrections we made. Now the next thing I want to do is move the character. I'm not going to move with like a standard AWSD controls. I'm just going to let the player control the movement with the mouse. So let's create a new script called... the first thing, I think I'll make a utility script first. Utility. And we're going to have public static get camera, I'll say get position under mouse. And it's going to return a vector3. So let's say we want to move the character to here. We need to get that actual world coordinate, which is going to be like a vector3. That's going to be like a 5, 10, 0, whatever. It's going to be a position, but on the screen the mouse is represented as a vector2. It only has an x and y. It doesn't have x, y, z. So essentially what we need to do is find the camera, cast a ray from the camera through the map, and whatever that ray hits at the mouse position, that's going to be like where the mouse is in the world. I'm not explaining that very well, but it'll make more sense when I do it. So get position under mouse. The first thing we need is a ray from the camera. So ray equals new. I think we can do like screen point to world. Let's see. Camera dot main dot screen returns a ray going from camera through a screen point. Yeah, that's what we need. And mouse dot position. Input dot mouse position. There we go. Alright, so this is the line that passes from the camera through the mouse. The next thing we need to do is figure out what's on that line. And why don't I just draw it so you guys can see? Draw array. And weirdly enough, you can't pass array into this function, which I think is just crazy. Basically what this function does is it's going to draw in the scene the array that we're using, but it doesn't, like, you can't pass the array into this function. So I'm just going to pass array.origin and array.direction times 1000. You can also give it a color and a duration. Let's say 1 second. Alright, so now I'm going to hit play, and I just broke this into a separate window so you can see both windows at the same time. Oh, and it's not happy with this function because it doesn't return a value. So we'll say return new v3, or whatever, return v3.0. We'll fix that later. So now I have my game view, and we're not actually calling the function yet. Let's create a script called character mouse. No, what do I want to call this? I can't call it character controller because Unity took that. I think they already have one called character controller. I'll just call it character behavior. I hate that name. Top-down character, there we go. Took me long enough. So now I'm going to drop that onto the character. And all this is going to do is call this function when the mouse is pressed. If input.getButton fire1 utility.get position under mouse. Save. So now in the game view, let's say I want to move the character to here. Now you can see the ray comes out from the camera and it hits that point. And so basically we just find that position in the world. Alright, so we don't need to draw that every time. It was just for your sake. Now if physics.raycast ray, let's see. Raycast hit. That'll work. So what this does is it's going to cast a ray from the camera to the map, and if it hits something, we're going to return hit.point. Incredibly simple. Later, if we want to, we can add a layer mask so that this only hits certain things. Like we don't want it to hit bullets or like certain special effects. And now let's just make sure we're getting that point back. So v3 position equals that, and let's just print that position. Alright, so the player should be positioned at like 0, 0, 0. If I click on him, he's a little bit to the left of the 0, 0, 0. But you can see down here, we're getting positions. It's working. So the next thing we should do is assign that position as his target. And I think I also want to, I don't know, maybe I want to move him with right click. Yeah, I think I'll do that. So let's make this, I think fire2 is right click. And we need a reference to his that was weird. My game view just disappeared. There it is. We need a reference to his AI character controller. And I don't think we can see that by default. AI character, no, we can't. So we have to import using Unity engine dot standard, no, that's not it. Unity, here we go. Using Unity standard assets dot characters dot third person. It's the longest using statement ever. Anyway, now we can create a variable of type. I just forgot what it was called. Come on. AI character control. public AI character control AI. And now when we right click, we want to give AI a new target. Position. And it's not happy with that because set target wants a transform. I have no idea why they would want a transform. That's irritating. We can't convert a vector3 to a transform, and there's literally no reason to create a transform at that point. We don't want to create an extra object just to give this a target. So we might have to edit this script. Set target transform. Nav mesh agent, character, third person, update rotation, target, set destination. Oh, I see. So they're setting it to a transform so that they can check their distance to the target, and if they're close enough, they stop moving. If the target moves away, they can actually track the target. We don't need all that extra functionality, so I might actually just delete this whole script. I just want to make sure I'm not going to break anything. AI nav mesh, third person character. Character.move. I mean, I think I could just change this to a vector3 because the nav mesh agent dot set destination takes a position anyway. And let's just set this to v3.target. All right. And this is pointless. We just need to set that here. Alright, so this is doing extra processing. It's kind of useless. I kind of want to get rid of it, but also it's not really hurting us. So we can just keep it in. So now I'm going to say AI.setTarget position. Oh, and now that did not work because I haven't actually given it a reference to AI yet. So we need to fill this field right here with a reference to itself, the AI character control field. Now if I right click, you can see we actually moved to that point. Okay. Now I want the camera to follow the character. I think that there's a smooth follow script. Yeah. Let's just use that. Actually, that might not be what we want. I don't like how it moved my camera down. Let's see what that script has. Distance 10, height 5. Why is... Oh, that is there. Okay. Camera, height... Oh, it was 5 before. Let's just set this to 10. And distance, yeah, that'll be fine. It's at a height of 5. Why is it doing that? Alright, so let's manually pull this up to 10 and see what happens. Alright, that's better. So now we track the player, he can run around. This is starting to look like a game. The next thing I want to do is make him point toward the mouse when we left click. So we should probably put that in top-down character. If input.getButtonDown. Oh, and we just want getButton, not getButtonDown. Once again, we'll grab the position under the mouse. And now rotating him toward that position is a little bit more complicated. We don't just want to say, like, rotate towards, because that's going to rotate him on every axis, and we don't want him to, like, lean over sideways. So we just want to rotate him around the y-axis. So let me think for a second. How do we do that? Position. So we have a position. Let's get the difference between him and where we want him to look. V3 offset equals transform.position minus position. Now offset.y equals 0. If the mouse is like pointed towards something that's 15 feet up in the air, we don't want him to point his, like, we don't want his feet pointed up 15 feet in, like, oriented toward that. So just orient him toward things that are on his plane. Y equals 0. Now for the next part, I think I have to think about this a little more, so I'm going to pause the video for a second. Alright, so I haven't tested this yet, but I think this will work. So I'm going to say transform.rotation equals... Actually, the first thing I need is a quaternion. So I'm going to say quaternion new rotation equals quaternion.look creates a rotation with the specified forward and upwards direction. Offset. Quaternion.slurp. And now what this does is you have where you're at, you have the rotation you want to move towards, and then you have the distance that you're going to interpolate between those two. So basically this just slides us from one rotation to the next by this amount. So first we put in the current rotation, then we put in the rotation we want, which is new rotation. And the distance will be time.delta time. And that's just going to normalize the speed so that it's the same no matter what frame rate we have. And we'll multiply this by some variable called rotation speed. And by default, we'll set that to 40. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's going to work or not. We'll find out. Okay, so when I click, he literally rotates exactly the opposite direction from what I want. So all I have to do is move these pieces. Alright, so now when I left click, he points the direction I want. So he starts walking, we start firing, and he stops moving. after we release the mouse, he'll continue moving in that direction. Cool, I like that. And as long as we're moving the direction we're shooting, he'll keep running. But if we try to shoot the direction we're not moving, he'll stop. Which makes sense. This is going to be really cool. I'm excited about this project. So I want to save. I've been going for an hour. I'm worried that YouTube is going to prevent me from uploading a 2-hour video. So I'm going to pause here, and then I'll pick it back up in 10 minutes and go for probably at least another hour. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.